I feel bad for him because I had changed the spell and see he kept saying living room theater mode. I'm like, no, you just have to say theater now. I simplified it.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, I'm going to take over and start the meeting.
Okay, if you must.
Welcome, everybody, to our October meeting of the Tucson Macintosh User Group, sometimes known as the Oktoberfest edition. And remember, Lederhosen and Weissbier for everyone after the meeting. We would like to welcome all of our sustaining members, new members, first-time guests, and dual platform switchers. I think I recognize all the names in the lineup at this time, although I think we had some Zoom bombers during the Ask Me Anything. I count 5 of them, but there was only one that was kind of a problem. But it was taken care of by our Sergeant at Arms, Roger Harmon.
At the maximum time during that meeting, we had 25 participants.
That's right. And a lot of them
were kids, but even so.
Okay, so remember that we have free raffle tickets for the super raffle for TMUG members. And Kurt will be taking attendance tonight, and he will fill in the raffle slips for each of the members. Our Zoom meetings, remember that with our Zoom meetings and mail list, you can participate and benefit every month of the year, regardless of your location. We have a new feature this month in the first installment of TMUG Labs. This month is starring Chris Wesselman, and he will compare and contrast the cameras from an iPhone XR or 10R or 10er and the new iPhone 14 Pro Max Ultra Super Duper Deluxe and other adjectives. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, November 15th at this same virtual location. In November, we will have another episode of Ask Me Anything, hopefully hosted by Kevin, because he seems to know most of the answers. Also in November, we will welcome our special guest, Christian Boyce, who will show us Safari tips to increase our productivity. He is a consultant in California, and I've seen his presentation at the Suffolk Mac User Group in Suffolk, England, and he has kindly agreed to give us the same presentation.
Wow, all the way from England?
No, he's in California.
Oh, okay.
But he gave his presentation to the Suffolk, England group, and that's the one I watched. And then I
good.
Twisted his arm, and he'll be here next month.
Very cool. I saw that. I couldn't make their meeting, but it sounded interesting.
I knew Bob was such an influencer.
Sometimes called arm twister.
I wouldn't know anything about
that. Oh, you might, Chris. We had a photo walk that took place on October 15th. We have some photos that were submitted, but not everybody submitted, and not everybody and on the walk submitted photos, such as Chris Wesselman.
Coming Saturday.
Hint, hint.
But we do have 37 of them that I'd like to show you in a quick slideshow from Apple Photos. And we're going to give this a try and see if this works. Going to share that desktop. Do you see my desktop and says photo walk?
We do.
Okay,
Yep.
let's see if this is going to work. It's going to take all of about 2.5 minutes.
Yay.
Very nice.
Bob, I think you're muted.
You are so correct. I think everybody had a good time. It was fun. I think that the cheese crisp was excellent. And I think that it was Melissa who took that photo, and I thank you for doing that.
That was just a quick snap. It's funny.
It's
Chris has a
interesting
better
to-
one.
It's interesting to see how
Stay
different
tuned.
people see the same thing in different ways. You
That's my
saw a
favorite
lot
part.
of the same buildings more than once, but they were all looked at with different eyes. Okay, so that was the photo walk. And now I'm going to go back to pages and
Did you
talk about-
guys see the water coming out of the water spouts?
Yes,
When
and I it was one of those coulda, shoulda, woulda. I could have pulled over. I should have pulled over, and I would have, but I didn't. It was wonderful seeing the water come out of the scuppers.
Yeah, my friend Kent got a nice still shot with his Nikon, but I tried to do a movie, but I was sort of moving around. It wasn't the car was moving, but the camera was moving since I was
Okay.
driving, and it's fun to look at, but I didn't get the audio or anything. But it really works. The water really does come out those things in a hurry.
Okay, so finishing up the opening here. TMUG is currently suggesting that members wait to install iOS 16 on their iPhones. In fact, we had at least one person who was having problems with that on their iPhones during the AMA section. For maybe 16.2, 16.3. Roger, do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, I've been saying 16.3.
Okay. Wait until it's a little more stable. But you can understand the new system by downloading the iPhone user guide in the Apple Books app. Look for the one that says iOS 16 at the bottom of the cover. It's a free download and only 843 pages. By the time you read all of that and understand it, it'll probably be time to download iOS 16. Do also remember that TMUG will hold elections in January, and all members in good standing are eligible. Please consider running for an office. If you have any questions about that, please get a hold of me or any of the other officers, and we'll let you know. We'll answer your questions about becoming a officer of TMUG. Are there any other announcements, something I forgot?
Susan just put a note about her getting a new Apple Watch. If you get a new Apple Watch, or you should update to iOS 16, otherwise you will not be able to update the watch and stuff
Okay.
like that.
For those of us who have new Apple Watches, Kevin, that's probably important. If you notice his left arm, he's got about 4 pounds of Apple Watch on his left arm.
4 ounces with the band. Exactly.
Did you get the
I weighed it.
Ultra?
Yeah.
Oh man, you got to tell us about it. Maybe not
It's
now, but
I was
sometime.
kind of forced into it.
I've heard that before, I think.
No, this is really, I wasn't planning on buying it. The wife gave away my Apple Watch 7 that I bought earlier this year to her son-in-law.
Well,
And I said, I could just buy him a new one for Christmas. She goes, no, I already promised him yours, so you have to get a new one.
Okay.
Well, all right, if I have to.
darn.
Are there any for sales or wanted to buy items from the floor? Welcome, Sherm. Welcome, Jerry. Tonight we're going to have our regular tech update. We're going to have the Geek gift guide and the first TMUG Labs presentation. And we're going to turn it over to Ridge if he's ready for the tech update. It looks like he's ready, so I will mute and turn it over to him, and he can share his screen and let us know. Take it away, Ridge, anytime you're ready.
Okay, here we go. Let me get rid of the okay, I got that out of the way. Now we'll go back again. For October, let's see what we have here. The software that was updated with interest to us, Reader, Cold Fusion, and Dimension from Adobe, and Backblaze. That's the first time I've seen Backblaze updated. And of course, if you use BusyCal instead of Apple's calendar program, it got an update, and Carbon Copy Cloner is now okay with Ventura. And you can see the others there, and Chrome went from 105 all the way up to 106.92. That's for iOS, and for the Mac, it went from 105 all the way to 106.119. And iMazing, which we've talked about here and ever so often, it's now okay with the M1 and M2 Macs. And Little Snitch got an update to 5.5. And Firefox went from 105 up to 106 for the Mac. And for iOS, it went from 104 to 106. And Thunderbird got an update that is now okay with Sierra and higher. And then the Office programs for Mac from Microsoft got an update. All those three iterations of Office went up to 16.66.1. And then Pixelmator Pro for the Mac is at now 301. And Pixelmator Pro for iOS is 2.74. And TechTool Pro got an update of their version 15 to 05. And then the new release of TechTool Pro 1602 is good now from El Capitan all the way through Monterey. And Zoom is now 512.2. That's what we're looking at right now. And Apple released GarageBand for iOS and iPadOS. And they had some other iOS releases, 16 and 1602 and 1603. And Watch got 2. And the AirPods Pro got a firmware. And Xcode was updated as well. And coming in beta, we've got a Ventura coming, supposedly a little bit later this month. And iPad OS got its version 15 got an update. And iOS went to 16.1. And the iPad OS 16 also went to 16.1. tvOS is coming. And so is watchOS 9.1 coming. And Xcode 14.1 is coming. So all these are now embedded beta, and some of them are in release candidates. So we're still recommending that you wait on 16 until it goes to 16.3. And Apple announced earlier today, a next generation Apple TV 4K, which has an Apple A15 Bionic chip inside it, and it can be ordered as early as 4th of November. And then there's next generation iPad Pros with an M2 chip in them, and they're available to order now. And they've redesigned the iPad in 4 colors with 4 10.9-inch display and an A14 Bionic chip inside and USB-C. It's going to be ordered today, and it's going to supposedly ship on 26th October. And then they said also that both Mac OS Ventura and iOS iPad OS 16.1 is supposed to be released on the 26th October as well. And then as far as Apple product excellence goes, there was a company called DisplayMate. They recently concluded that the iPhone 14 Pro Max display is the best on any smartphone to date, setting or matching 15 category records. They did some extensive lab tests and measurements and said it has the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a very impressive, excellent, top-tier, world-class smartphone display with close to textbook perfect calibration, accuracy, and performance that's virtually indistinguishable from perfect. Now, which Macs can run the Monterey operating system? And you can take a look at this slide and see if you got any of those Mac models. And that is what Apple says they can comfortably run Mac OS Monterey 12.0. And it's up to 12.6 right now. And then if you're wondering what Macs can run Ventura, and here's the list of them. And none, in no one of these lists is my old cheese grater Mac Pro from 2008, which I had to finally say goodbye to and replace it with a new Mac Studio containing the M1 Ultra chip inside it. Now, as far as rumors go, and there's a bunch of people online that think that Apple has a lot more stuff to reveal later this month or next month. And they still think that the M1, the M2, an M2 Pro and an M2 Max equipped MacBook Pros will be getting released soon. And as far as its AR VR headset, now the online is folks are saying sometime next year. And of course, some are suggesting Apple's not going to have another big event this year, but it's going to release the remaining products via press releases, much as they did with the announcement I gave you in the other slide. And they're asking, saying that Apple might release a 12-inch mini LED powered ProMotion external display early next year. 27-inch, wow. As far as maintenance issues go, Apple says they're aware that some users of the iPhone 14, 14 Plus, iPhone Pro, 14 Pro, and the Pro Max may see a message that reads SIM not supported appear. And after displaying that message, the iPhone may entirely freeze. Apple says it's investigating the issue and notes that it's not a hardware problem. And then they also say you should keep the software up to date, but they haven't got a specific fix for that so far. And of course, we still have TMUG cloth logos and pins at our next in-person meeting. Every member will get a pin on. And that's it for the first part of my presentation tonight. Let's see what's available for items of security interest for this month.
Excuse me, Ridge, we are seeing your color palette. Can you
Your picker,
get rid of that?
What's that?
Your
color picker.
Your color picker
The
is in the
crayon
middle of
box.
the screen.
There's a crayon box and it's covering the text of your slides.
Ah,
There goes.
There you go.
how's that?
Better.
Much better.
Much better. Thank you.
I didn't know, but anyway, Adobe has got some security fixes in Reader, Cold Fusion, and Dimension, and Google's got security fixes in Chrome. 104 and 10 up to 106. And Mozilla's got security fixes in Firefox for Mac and for Firefox for iOS and Thunderbird, the two releases of Thunderbird. Microsoft updated the Office products for security flaws and was 16.66. And the 16.66.1 release that they just did, they said they didn't have any security updates in. Apple updated the following items there for security patches: iOS 16.02 and 03, and the Watch OS got a security update as well. As far as cybercrime goes, Chrome Leader is malware that came on the scene by hacking web browsers to redirect users to pages of ads. And it's apparently evolving into a more significant threat by deploying malicious payloads that go beyond bad advertising, which they call malvertising. The variants of the software have been seen dropping ransomware on Windows PCs and Macs, according to researchers at the Carbon Black Managed Detection and Response Team. That unit's recent report about the rapidly growing number of more dangerous Chrome loader variants mixes up with what other cybersecurity researchers have detected. That infection begins with an ISO file that is downloaded when a user clicks on a link in a YouTube comment or hits a malicious ad. That ISO file, when opened and its contents is run, execute Node WebKit, which is a desktop web application powered by Chromium that's set up to presumably load ads and click on them to generate revenue. Or it installs a browser extension that does the same sort of thing. The miscreants behind it are also slinging DMG files to target Mac users. This is linked to Dev 0796 and is probably using Chrome Leader. So be careful when you're on the internet and don't do anything that's not smart. Then ESET and Sentinel-1 report that North Korean Lazarus attackers are targeting Mac users via fake crypto jobs solicitations to infect them with malware, hiding under such names as Wi-Fi analytics agent, along with decoy PDF documents. There were lures for job vacancies at cryptocurrency exchange platform Coinbase to infect Mac OS users with malware that was all universal Mac OS capable of running on either Intel or M1 Apple Silicon machines and signed with an ad hoc signature, meaning they pass Apple's operating system gatekeeper checks despite not being associated with a recognized developer identity. So it's a good idea to really be careful when you're on the internet and don't click on really suspected things. Thanks for your attention for this part, and I'm sorry about showing the crayons, color crayons. And we'll see you
Thanks,
next month.
Ridge.
Next month, same time, same station, same bat channel.
Thank you, Ridge. Appreciate all your work there. And
Right.
you unshare your screen.
Well, where's the little, oh, there it is, way down.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, so next we're going to do the annual Geek gift guide. I've got it up and running, and now I'm going to try to share that window and see if that is going to work for us. Okay, do you see the Geek gift guide first?
Yeah.
panel?
Yep.
Okay, I'm using a new to me template in Keynote that has some waves going through it. Can you see the waves working?
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
then it's
really
probably working.
cool. It's very soothing.
And Roger beat me to the punch. He used it during his luncheon. Geek
Cool.
Geek lunch with Roger today at noon from an undisclosed location.
Where did you
Okay,
get the template?
it's part of
This just comes
Keynote.
with Keynote. Cool.
Yeah, it's a Keynote template. First, we're going to take a look at the Scoshi Thud Buds. These are some buds for your ears. It's a Bluetooth 5, and they have removable clips. So you can, if you're not moving around very much, you can leave the clips off. They are $41. All the prices are the prices I found when I put that slide together. Could they be different? Yes, they could. This was suggested by John Nemo, and he had a pair of them sent to him for review purposes by Scosh or Scoshi, whichever one it was. And he has kindly passed them along to me. I have them here. I haven't tried them yet. They just arrived today. Next, we have something suggested by Kurt, an LED desk lamp that
Oh, I like that.
shines down on your desktop without putting glare on your screens. And do you have a few words to say about it, Kurt?
I only use it with one monitor.
Oh, I'm sorry. You only have one monitor?
Yes, I only have one monitor. But my monitor is 30 inches and this is a little wider than that. So it's very wide. But the thing that I really like about this thing is that it's shining straight down and it doesn't splash any light at all on the screen. So that your keyboard and your desktop are all lit up very nicely and the screen is still dark, just the way it should be.
Okay. Most excellent. And if I get back into, there we go. That should work now. Okay. The MyCharge portable iPhone charger for MagSafe cases. It's a 6,000 milliamp hour wireless power bank suggested by Chuck Joyner of the Mac Voices podcast. And you see it there, how it is stuck to the back of an iPhone in the upper right-hand corner. And here is something also suggested by Chuck Joyner, a Spigen tough armor, and it allows you to do the MagSafe through the case for iPhone 14 Pro Max for $31. And here's one suggested by our own Chris Wesselman. And it is clear, which allows him to see the beautiful deep purple color of his iPhone Pro Max Ultra Super Duper Deluxe. And it has drop protection of up to 13 feet. And during our photo walk, he was continually tossing it up in the air to 13 feet, and it always worked for him after that for only $50. But then you can improve it by getting this snap ring to go on the back of it, give you a place to hold on to it, and you could even use it as a stand, kickstand. And here's something else suggested by Chuck Joyner, and it is Amfilm screen protectors. I have them on my iPhone and my iPad, and
I
so
do
does
too.
Gretchen.
Me three.
Okay, and the other day Gretchen says, "Oh, my screen is broken." And if you look really close, you can see a little crack in the screen protector, and we have yet to peel it off of there and put the other one on, because they always give you two. And this one is compatible with the dynamic island. Here is an disassembled iPhone that you can mount it and framed, and you can put it on your wall. Again, something suggested by Chuck Joyner. And they have many different Apple products, a lot of different iPhones and so forth, that they will take apart, put them on a display, and you can hang them on your wall. Here's something suggested by Susan Clement. Thank you, Susan. All these little pieces of adhesive rubber silicone feet, they can be used on your Apple Tech and also in your kitchen cabinets and all over the house. They're probably a good thing to have around. Here's something that I suggested. It's a product that we just recently purchased for our evening television watching, and it is a set of wireless headphones with two headphones, and they work really well. And we plug them in for a couple hours a day, and there doesn't seem to be any delay in transmitting the sound to us. We're very happy with them. The only problem is now if we need to talk to each other during a show, we have to text each other.
This could actually save some marriages, or
Well, yeah,
the other
that's
way.
possible too. That's possible too. Here's something suggested by Kevin, the ultimate photographic record in Kindle or hardcover of the Apollo missions. And it sounds like something that if you are interested in space that you really ought to have around. I'm not sure if it's $55 for a Kindle and $56 for a hardcover. I think I'd get a hardcover. What
Yeah,
did you
right
end up
now-
with, Kevin?
Well, I'm getting the hardcover, but they won't be released until the 25th.
Oh,
And then it
okay.
goes up to $75 from the 56s, which is the pre-release.
Okay, very good. Here is another power bank, 30,800 milliamp hours. And it displays the amount of charge left in it. And it is 25 watts and only $29, suggested by Pilot Pete of the Mac Geek Gab. Now, something for the geek in all of us is we always want to know about the weather. And here is a weather station with all of these possibilities. And it's Alexa enabled. Sorry, I said the A word. For only $329. It's something that I wouldn't mind having it.
I have one.
You have one?
Yep.
And
I've had it for a couple of years.
Does it tell you the weather?
It does.
Then
This
that's-
looks like a newer model than the one I have.
Okay.
But the nice thing about
gonna
it is it measures the wind without having a mechanical anemometer.
And it spins around.
Right.
You're gonna have to come up with a new name for your new pet then, Bob, for your
Okay.
backyard.
Here's another weather station that was recommended during the Suffolk Mac user group meeting. Indoor, outdoor wireless sensors. You can add a rain gauge for only another $80 and an anemometer for another $100. So that's pretty pricey too, but you can see it all on your phone. Here's something that I have. I have one of these little key smart things, a key fob, and it really does make the lump in your pocket much smaller. I like it. I've had it for, I think, more than a year now, and have been very happy with it. And here's something that, again, suggested by Susan Clement. I wish I knew about this in the past. This is a internet-based landline replacement. Susan said that she'd had a landline for a long time, and she had her iPhone as well. And she really does not want to get rid of the landline, but she doesn't really want to answer it very much. It's only for people trying to sell her stuff and doctor's appointments and so forth. She found this VoIP free home service, and it's $80. And then there is a fee to port your current landline number over to this service. And evidently, if it was, I don't know who the service was, whether it was CenturyLink or some cable company, but she had a hard time getting them to port the number over.
It was Verizon.
Verizon. Verizon doesn't do landlines, do they?
They used to do voice over IP.
Well, this is something to take place of a landline.
Right, but they had something like that that worked over LTE, and they sunsetted it as of this year.
Okay.
So that's why
Well-
she needed to get this.
I wish I had known about this when I was going through my divorce from CenturyLink. I think I kept the landline for like 6 months while everything kind of settled out, and probably cost me $60 a month. And this would have saved me a bunch of money. Now everything is on our cell phones.
It's not totally free. I pay $5.99 a month for taxes and administration.
All of those fancy fees and so forth that they say, oh, the government says those aren't taxes, those are fees. And for me, I think that anything where you have to give money to the government and you don't have any choice about it, I think that's called a tax. Here's a recommendation from David Cohen of the Tech Fan podcast for a set of wireless noise canceling headsets. It is from Sony. It's here. I found it as a refurb for only $274, but David Cohen really likes them. Here is a stocking stuffer suggested by Kurt. And these are little black dots and so forth with tiny little holes in them. So if you cover all of those annoying LEDs that we have all over our houses with those things, you can still sleep.
They're not actually holes. They're very, very dark gray, so that 80% of the light is canceled.
Okay.
So that if you've got little bright light pilot lights around the house, on the TV, on radios, on printers, on my shredder over there, you stick one of those things on each one of those little LEDs and they almost disappear. You can still tell whether it's on or off, but it's very dim.
Okay.
Can you still use your remote control when they're stuck on there? I have an old TV that requires a line of sight remote, and I put a piece of electrical tape over it because the blue dot. When
Oh,
you're trying to watch Game of Thrones, and there's this blue dot just staring at you, it makes it really difficult.
It depends on where the infrared receiver is, obviously.
right.
Well, when I covered it, then I couldn't use the remote. So I tried moving it over, and no, it won't go through there.
Ah, okay. They got you.
But I
that
wonder
one,
if those
that one.
stickers would be any different. I wonder if they would let an IR pass.
I'll be happy to give you some if you want to try.
Okay.
You can see how many of them there are on a sheet.
Do you have anything that still has an IR remote that you could stick it on there and point it and see if it still works?
I just put it over the actual LED, and so
Mm-hmm.
you know.
When we were on
Yeah,
our photo walk last Saturday, I think it was Chris who realized that his Apple Watch was nearly out of juice. And here's something that would help all of us charge up the Apple Watch when we're on the road, when we're traveling, or when we just forget. So this is a very inexpensive Apple Watch charger. You got to plug it into a USB-A port to get some juice to go to the charger.
And a
Use
power
the
brick
battery
would be
pack that you
just right.
recommended.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
the battery pack. I think they come in USB-A and USB-C. Okay, here is a GAN Prime foldable wall charger. This little thing, you can see how big it is because you can see one of the blades of the plug in the lower left, and that's putting out 120 watts. So
And that is not gallium nitride.
thank you. Gallium nitride. I just copied down what it said on Amazon. Copy and paste. So this could take the place of 3 different plugins, and it's small and light and easy to use. Now, there was a question earlier during Ask Me Anything. Gee, do you have a uninterruptible power source? I think it's a good idea to have one of those. We have one in my office, one in Gretchen's office, and one for our TV stuff in the main room. So this will basically, it powers everything by battery all the time, but it's also pulling juice from the wall to recharge the batteries, and it allows you to keep running long enough to shut everything down in a nice, timely manner without losing anything. So here's one from CyberPower, 1500 volt amps, 1000 watts, $220. If you have a Mac that does not have a camera built into it, such as if you have a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, you may want a HD webcam with microphone. And here's one that's very inexpensive. And as I recall, it had decent reviews on Amazon. Now, I made a mistake a couple of days ago. I sent an email off to Guy Cyril of the My Mac podcast, a guy who has known to have a microphone addiction problem. And he has many more microphones than he would like to admit to his wife. I asked him for a recommendation for a budget microphone, USB connected, for our Zoom meetings. And this is the one that he came up with. He also sent off about 4 or 5 other recommendations as well, much to the chagrin of his partner on the My Mac podcast, because it took up a whole bunch of the time of the most recent My Mac podcast. But here's one. It's a $50 USB condenser mic. And if you buy it with the boom arm, headphone jack, shock mount, you can get it for like $65. I'm tempted, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. Remember the Universal Translator on Star Trek, the original series? Well, evidently someone has kind of coming up with it. Works with 36 different languages. You speak into it, it will record your voice and play it back in one of 36 languages. And then you can record your conversational response from your friend, and it'll translate it back into English. If I did more traveling, I might be wanting one of these. Here is a clock that is a ring. It looks like it is 5:46 p.m. according to this ring. The ring that gives you time. And we have something else that would be a lot of fun, a little microscope that plugs into USB, and you can look at bugs or other small things very close up with your Mac. Is that the end? Nope, it's not quite. Here is a wallet for your passport that has a place to put an AirTag. And finally, an Apple Watch Ultra Super Deluxe for only $800. And Kevin has one of those. And if somebody gave me one, I'd wear it, but I'm probably not going to buy one. And that is the end. Thank you for your attention. And the screen share looks like it's gone. I want to point out to you that we have the feedback form, and it is in the meeting chat. Bob Doms put it there. And thank you, Bob, for doing up the feedback form. We really appreciate it and hope that everybody will click on that link right now and leave it up in their browser and fill out the form when they get the chance. So now we're going to go over to Chris, and he's going to do a short presentation on comparing and contrasting the cameras of the iPhone 10 and iPhone 14 Pro Max. So take it away, Chris.
Okay, let's see if this is ready to go here. Let me find my PowerPoint. Of course, I'm seeing everything but at this point.
Hopefully it's not PowerPoint.
Actually, it is. I couldn't get Keynote, kept crashing on my M1 that I have no idea why. So I just defaulted to the old. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So Bob, the influencer, when he heard I had my new phone, along with all the extra epithets, twisted my arm into doing this, which at a weak moment I agreed to. And so I've had it. There's a little bit of a quiz later on, but if you might remember that I've had it since 9/21, so just under a month. And my iPhone, let me see, let me reduce the people here so I can put this thing away. I can see my screen. Okay. I believe this is from Apple. And I added, this describes the 3 lenses basically. My previous phone was an iPhone XR or 10R, and that is the iPhone 10 vintage. And it was the following year in the iPhone 11 that they introduced the 3rd camera. So I had been living on 1 lens and I went to 3. And for me, as I used to do a lot of event photography at work, and very reminiscent of having 3 prime lenses that were all for low light photography, f1.8 primes. And so the 3 lenses are basically is that there's a 13 millimeter ultra wide, which is over here, right underneath the LiDAR scanner, if anybody's heard about that. And then the telephoto is up in the corner. That's a 77 millimeter. And the main lens, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is capable of both 24 and 48 millimeter. And that is referred to as the 2x zoom. Going back to the ultra wide, that's called the 0.5. Then the 24 is a 1.0 zoom. And the 48 is a 2x zoom. And then the 77 is a 3x. They don't really kind of feel that way to me, but I'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. So this is the 3 lenses here. What's unusual about this camera is the regular lens here, the 24 millimeter, is capable of shooting at 48 megapixels. So they put an extra big sensor in there. And that's one of the ways that they are able to create this 2x zoom, which is essentially at 12 megapixels. Now, I know this sounds very confusing, and I was trying to think of how to explain this to you guys. So let's see. Okay, next slide. I created my own drawing. I probably should have done this electronically, but what I'm trying to show here, and my zoom bar is in the way, but I made a big square representing, the main sensor. That's the 24 millimeter at 48 megapixels. And it can also be switched to 12, by the way, which most people will use, because the 48 megapixel images take up a lot more space. But with the crop mode, the way it works on a normal camera is it will crop down to some sort of a crop size. In this case, it's 12 megapixels, and that ends up being 48 megapixels. And you may be sort of confused about this and wonder what's the big deal. It turns out to be a very convenient size. And I'll mention it a couple of times going forward here. And the interesting thing, though, is if they're doing this in hardware, they're only restricting it to the Apple camera so far. None of the third-party cameras can access this 48 millimeter camera, which would be or lens, which would be very nice because it's very convenient. So anyway, let me keep going here. And there was an interesting article I found in The Verge that more or less agreed with everything that I was saying, which was sort of nice to find somebody with a lot of street credibility like The Verge saying that, but it is really handy. And oops, getting ahead of myself there. So I can post this link later on if anybody's interested in that. So then the next question everybody was asking was, well, so 48 megapixels, is it really that big a deal? So here's an image, a sunset image I took at the new Rudy's Barbecue, conveniently, and had a very nice view of the sunset. And if you look at this sort of as kind of a variant, if you drew like a 30-degree line up here, sort of above the sunset, and you look at all the shades of blue into green and all the reds and oranges. And now, admittedly, I did process this in Lightroom, okay? This is not straight out of the camera, but that's part of what the extra megapixels give you, is a lot more data to work with in post-processing. And so in comparison, this is the 24 millimeter view, and the 48 megapixels is only available in the 24 millimeter view. Everything else is 12 megapixels. But so here's the 24, and then there's the 48 at 12 megapixels, and there's the 77. And again, if you look at the blues, that should give you a good indication of what's capable in terms of working with images in post-processing. Now, this isn't for every photographer. I suspect that a whole lot of people that buy the 14 Pro or Pro Max, and by the way, those two models, the camera is identical regardless of the size. The Pro cameras are both the same. I suspect a lot of people will probably never even use the 48 megapixel, and it's not something you'd use every day, but it's kind of a nice thing to have. So there's that. And I've got about 24, 25 slides here. So let me work through these, and then we can jump back if there are any questions. And just looking at all the different views, this is the 0.5 zoom at 13 millimeters. Although strangely, it comes across as 14 millimeters, but we won't worry about that. And here's the 24, and here is the 48 and the 77. Now, again, if you look at these two bottom images here, particularly, you can just barely make out this sign here in the shadows. It doesn't look like that big a difference from 48 to 77, but you'd be surprised what a difference it can make. So next up, I wanted to talk about the ultra-wide lens. And these are some pictures from the Barrio Viejo. I took these on an earlier photo walk, by the way. I did a beta version for myself and my friend Kent. And so you can see what, working with an ultra-wide, and I think this is an ultra-wide vertical. And then this is probably the 48 here. So it gives you an idea. And one of the really nice things with an ultra-wide is you can get really close to something and still capture it. So if they're the ultra-wide usage is really in two categories. One, where you can't back up far enough to get the whole thing for various reasons. It's like there's a cliff there or who knows what. And the ultra-wide, you get this big panoramic view. And that of course can incorporate problems with, lean in and parallax and that sort of thing. But those are somewhat correctable. Or you can take just a very, very wide picture. And this is an example here of cropping down, or in this case, it's the 48. So, and this is another example. This was a black and white that I shot for the camera club. And, I started off with a vertical ultra wide, and then I was dying to try cropping it because it was supposed to be straight out of the camera. So for my own purposes, I made a crop version of this, and you can see it crops very well. It makes a very nice, this, like a 24, this would be like a 24 millimeter. So next up is the portrait mode. and why we need it. And what is up here is the iPhone XR picture, which was a 26 millimeter lens, although they're incredibly close. And this is the 14 Pro at the 24 millimeter. And this is the 14 Pro at 48 millimeters, and which is the new default portrait view. And I don't know if you can tell very well in this picture, but one of the problems when you're shooting portraits, and whether it's, you know, stuffed animals, real animals, or people, is, you know, you can get some facial distortions. And it's just sort of the reverse with kids, where you want it with little kids, where you want to get down in their level and get really close. In this case, you want to get far enough back so that, you know, things look like they're supposed to look. So if you notice, particularly with this rabbit here, he has more of a straight on look, whereas in these two, it doesn't. It's sort of looking off to the side because, again, it's too close. Now, this next image is from my daughter, Emily, and this is her daughter, Sydney, and her cousin, Sophie, at just before their homecoming dance, their sophomores, up in Fort Collins. And if you notice, you know, this picture doesn't look quite right, okay? You know, if you look at the faces, they're too full, basically. I mean, Sophie is a heavier gal, but, you know, still, I mean, if you look at it relative to their legs sort of look diminished. And this is a really good case of not using the portrait mode. And I didn't really understand this initially, but I think this is why, one of the reasons Apple did it, because they knew people would be getting too close and be getting distortions with wide angle. On the macro side, it's very interesting how this works. There's actually a switch, a little yellow dot you can turn on that you can keep it from switching to the ultra wide lens, but it does macro with the ultra wide lens, and you can see the difference here. That's about as close as I could get with the XR, and this is with the 14 Pro. And then here's an image that basically puts them together. And so you can see the relative sizes. I don't claim that this is perfectly scaled, but it's about roughly, it's close. Okay, so that's the macro thing. Been a lot of discussion about that. Now for some comparisons. These are some pictures in my neighborhood. You can see the XR image at the top and the 14 Pro at the bottom. Can everybody see the difference in that? I don't know how much you're getting on Zoom.
Not really.
They look pretty close.
They're
Yeah, I was
close. The
afraid of
top one
that.
is darker.
I see differences.
Yeah,
Yeah, the bottom one is much crisper.
yeah, and shinier too. Do you notice how the metallics come across much more metallic?
Yeah.
And they're sort of flat up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the tiles.
Sorry?
You can look at the tiles. You can see the tiles on the bottom one, the detail. And you can't.
Oh, that's true. Good thought. Good thought. So that was one. I mean, this was something that Bob drummed into me. He really wanted some comparison shots. And so, I mean, as much as you can, it's actually not easy to do because at this time of day, the light was changing too. But I think these are roughly similar. And then here are a couple in a more of a landscape shot. Now, part of this is Apple's got their new photonic engine. Like to know who in Apple marketing made up that one. But as I'm going to comment later, I'm looking for the opacity switch to turn it down. So this is just another fancy name for image optimization, which all the cameras that shoot JPEG are doing, because that's the nature of JPEG or HEIC, is an optimization format. But I think, can you guys see the difference here in terms of, it's on my screen, it's kind of bicycles and airplanes. You look at the clouds, you look at the fire hydrant, look at the definition in the tree. I could have actually made this a little smaller so you saw more of the backup image. Sorry about that.
I really see the difference in the 14 Pro Max shot. There's an awful lot more there. It's like the one from the 10R has a dirty lens.
Yeah. And well, keep in mind though that it's very difficult in any kind of camera situation with comparing two cameras. I mean, you can only kind of get so close because there are a lot of other variables involved. But basically, it really does look a lot better. But of course, Apple's going to always do that, right? Now, here is one of these shots is with the XR, and the other one is with the new 14 Pro. And by the way, the barbecue was equally good with either camera. And this is their baked potato, by the way, with the two meats on top, which I highly recommend. If you haven't been to this Rudy's, it's down off of Keno Parkway and I-10, and it's really fun if you like barbecue. But at any rate, any guesses as to which one's which?
I like the dynamic range of the top left, just for artistically. But the one on the bottom seems to be, that's more subtle.
Right.
It's also crisper.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
one on the
Or it's
bottom,
more in
I
focus
would
on
guess
the
would be
lower
the
right.
Pro.
I would say that's the 14. It's the lower right.
That's what I
Anybody
guess
else?
too. Because
but
I'm looking at the sign on the side in the middle there. It's
Oh, that's a
got more
good thought.
definition.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
the one in the upper left, it's blown out more. And I agree with Kevin. I like the one in the upper left just artistically wise because it looks more like it's glowing. You can really see the neon, but it's defined more in the lower right hand corner, which makes me think that it might be the 14.
Yep. And these are the dates. This one was 901 over here, and this one was 1013. And I got the new iPhone came in on 921. So this is very definitely the one from the new iPhone. But there's a sort of a subtext here. First of all, the light was really good on this one. And, you know, like Ansel Adams said, it's all about the light, which is one of the reasons it makes such a great camera in our pocket, because you see great light and you think, oh man, I wish I had the big camera. And I'll touch on that a little bit more here in a minute. But yeah, this was very good light, but this is the iPhone XR. However, it has a really good camera. I mean, I was almost having second doubts about sending it in if they hadn't given me so much on the trade-in. But it, you know, depending on what you're shooting with, pretty much any iPhone has terrific capabilities to get out there and have fun and do photography with. So yeah, thanks for the feedback on that. And you guys guessed it. Yeah, the definition is a little bit better. I tried to match up the light, but I couldn't quite because it was just a little bit, it was a little bit darker on this one up here. Okay. So a little bit about, I have some questions at the end, which we can sort of, or discussion points we can talk about. But one of the fun things about iPhone in general and iPhone shooting is Melissa mentioned over lunch this place called, gosh, is it the Mercado Annex? Melissa, is that what it's called?
That's what it is. Yeah, it's the container park. Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, you went, yay.
Yeah, well, Kent and I went over there and we found Decibel Coffee and we loved it.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Nice. We're both hard of hearing. You can sit there at a table like this, talk all day long. Nobody's listening over your shoulder. There's no loud noise like in a bar or anything. You know, all these restaurants that reflect the sound down. I mean, what's the point of going out for a meal if you can't have a conversation, right?
And these are all containers.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell when you're inside, right?
Well, we're actually, yeah, we're sitting outside, and this was my cortado and a coffee ice cream that I got talked into. But it's really fun. And here's a shot of Decibel Coffee. And it does lean a little bit on the left side down. Sorry about that. I should have straightened it a little bit better. But the thing I'm trying to convey here is that, you know, you can get a look and a style with iPhone Some people like to go back and shoot with a pinhole camera to get that look. They actually have modern pinhole lenses you can put on your expensive camera. Or they get lens babies and things to distort things. But you can create a style. And, you know, my friend Kent had the iPhone 12 and very similar pictures. And it's just something you can really have fun with wherever you are. And they're nice keepsakes, you know, to sort of remember something. And sure, they're not perfect. I mean, the highlights are a little blown out here and stuff. You can process some of this stuff, but you know, they come out really nicely and it's really fun. Here's some of the Barrio and Presidio. But before I get there, I mean, just one comment that I run the wildlife SIG for the camera club I'm in, Club Camera Tucson. And a lot of wildlife shooters that walk around with these big honker lenses on their cameras, they're all starting to use their iPhone as the second camera because they're pictures of signs. You know, you're taking pictures of, say, bird pictures, which is a huge one, of course, or some form of wildlife, and you want to get kind of a wide shot, something of their environment, you know, something to, you know, a little bit more document where the picture was taken and that sort of stuff. iPhone's perfect for that. And having the 3 lenses is really fantastic because you can just jump around, and it's one heck of a lot easier than it was changing those lenses back on my D7000. So, and here's some just sort of sample images with the new camera from the Presidio and the Barrio and stuff. I'll put some of these up on the shared. I wanted to debut them here, of course, but I'll put them on the shared album. I'll try to find some that are a little more unique. The other thing that's kind of really fun, this one's from the Barrio, and these 2 are from the Presidio neighborhood. This is right next to the art museum, but you can kind of get in close. Like I've shot this house in the Barrio a couple of times, but as I was walking up to the gate next to it, I realized I could sort of lean over the top of the mailbox of the neighbors and sort of sneak my iPhone under there and get this picture. And, you know, sure, you could do it with a big camera, but it would be a lot harder, a lot less convenient. And it's just kind of fun. It makes a really interesting picture, to me anyway. And then, or you can back up like these and get more an image like this, or this is sort of a historical piece by the art museum. There's probably somebody probably knows more than I do, Melissa, Kurt, about what that is, but
well, it's a mosaic, I think.
Yeah.
And
anyway, it's just something fun that you know you can get a picture of that looks interesting, and it doesn't have to be a magazine cover photo. It's just something you want to take and have for yourself. So now here's a good example. We had quite a thunderstorm over here on the west side back on September 26th. And I had climbed up into the kind of open desert behind my subdivision. And once I got up there, I thought, oh man, I should have brought the Nikon along. But this is a great example. This is a 24 millimeter shot, and here's the 48. And what I found was I kept going to the 48, even though I meant going to the Apple camera. And there are a bunch of third-party apps, and for the purposes of tonight, we're just talking about the Apple camera. But suffice it to say, I was sufficiently impressed with the 48 millimeter focal length that I wanted to jump over the Apple camera. And it's interesting because the clouds always look a little soft with the iPhone pictures, and they were kind of soft that night. But so, you know, I did make them a little bit, I put a little bit more definition in them. And a couple more, 2 final images. And I was really surprised. I mean, this was 9/26. This was 5 days. This was day 5. And I didn't even get to the camera and the iPhone until day 2. So, you know, this was about the 4th day I'd used it, and I was really impressed with what these look like on the camera. And just, oh, yes, and here's my thank you slide with a picture of Melissa holding the cheese crisp. and Bob, and I should have shot this with the ultra wide. I would have gotten Kurt. We just see his right shoulder here. Sorry, Kurt. But so that was my thank you note. It's been fun putting this together, and thanks for the photo walk and introducing me to that Presidio neighborhood, which is really cool. Another really cool neighborhood. So just sort of general comments. I mean, we don't have to really talk about all of these. I mean, there are just some things to point out. I mentioned about the wildlife photographers. One thing to be aware of on the newer iPhones is Apple's using this new P3 color space. And one thing you will definitely see is when you move your photos onto the web and traditional RGB or sRGB is the web version, that they will not look quite as vibrant because it's not quite the same color space. So people say, gee, that really looked better on my iPhone. Yeah, it did, because it was a different color space. And then, we talked about Apple's photonic engine. I wish there was an opacity slide like Photoshop so I could reduce it a little bit. I think it's a little strong for my taste, what they're doing. I actually like what some of the third-party cameras are doing. I like Camera Plus and Halide, but we can talk about that another day or another time. And there've been a lot of complaints about the whole idea of computational photography, but to be honest, the big guys are starting to look at this too. So they're trying to bring that into some of the, even the professional cameras and stuff. Let's see what else here. Oh, there's a lot of talk about this in the smartphones and the market, and then there's all the TikTok and Instagram stuff, which I kind of demur from. I'm not obviously not in that generation. So, but any questions?
I'd like to say a couple things. You kept talking about 24 millimeter, 48 millimeter, 77 millimeter. And I just want to say that is not the true focal length of those lenses / cameras. That is translated into 35 millimeter full frame parlance. Just so you don't think that you really have that lens there. One other thing is you can see that there's quite a camera bump on the back of the iPhone 14. Personally, I wish that they would make the phone that much thicker and give me that much more battery.
I agree.
Yeah, that would be a thought. It would weigh even more.
It would weigh a little more.
And that was pretty hefty.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my thought about the camera, and maybe we're getting to the end of the Johnny Ive era. A few of us have Mac Studios, and they even have ports on the front of the computer,
Yeah,
which would never happen under Johnny Ive, because heaven forbid it doesn't look smooth and flat and thin and wonderful. But man, they are very, very
accessible,
convenient.
Well, Bob, just a quick answer on your lens observations. I totally agree. The 48 millimeter to me feels very much like about a 75, 80 millimeter portraiture lens on a conventional 35 millimeter full frame camera. The 77 feels very much like somewhere between 135 and 150 millimeters. It's definitely telephoto, which 77 millimeters is not normally. And the 24 feels, like about a 28 to 30 millimeter to me. And the ultra wide sort of hard because I can't gauge that. I do have a 14 to 30 full frame ultra wide lens. It's really hard for me to compare the two, but that's one of the things that makes the 48 millimeter so usable for portraits. In fact, it is the default when you go into the portrait mode. I just got my browser up here in case anybody's got a question about a specific slide so we can go to it. But yeah, it is heavier. I mean, there's no doubt, particularly with the case that I got that you all saw earlier. I'm hoping that ring will help me to hold it up to do a little bit of video. It's something I always forget to do. Yeah. And I can post this presentation if you guys want to. I can post it up to the TMUG site if you want. I'll take the granddaughter picture out for their privacy, but any other questions?
I just had a comment. You mentioned about how the photographers were going out and using the iPhone as their second camera, and one of the things you said, and I think it's really something that should be repeated, is that the iPhone captures the GPS locations as you're shooting. And sure, fancy cameras that you can put an SD card into, or some of the more modern ones maybe have that built in, but boy, is it really handy on the iPhone. And it just plots it out on the map for you in the Photos app. And I love that feature. I mean, you guys all saw how many pictures I keep on my phone. And one of the things I love to do is to look at it from the location view and just look at it all across, because I've been on cross country road trips, and I have some friends that have shared pictures with me from around the world, and you could just kind of spin the globe and see all the pictures. And I think that's a really fun feature.
Yeah, and if you have a program like iPhone, it's got or like Lightroom, it's got a map feed module where you can see all your pictures displayed.
If
it's built right into Photos. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Bob.
I'd like to explain pixel binning. And the main camera, the 1X and 2X camera on the iPhone 14 Pro, produces generally 12 megapixel resolution. And how it does that is it has 48 megapixels, but it does what's called pixel binning, where it takes 4 pixels and treats it as one. And that is the pixel binning ends up 12 megapixels instead of 48. And the reason behind that is if you have larger pixel sensors, you're going to get much better low light resolution.
Yep, that's the quad pixel sensor right here.
Right. So they just take the middle 12 megapixels and use each individual pixel as a pixel, and that comes out to the other 12. So it's not the same as digital zoom used to be. And also, comment about weight. I no longer have all of this equipment, but I have had a Nikon F2 with a motor drive that takes 12 or 16 AA batteries and an 85 millimeter f1.8 lens. Talk about a chunk.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn heavy.
That's asking for arthritis is what that is.
And then you think about the fact that there was a time when 35 millimeter cameras were looked down upon because, they're just miniature cameras. They're toy cameras. They're not real cameras.
Compared to the Hasselblads and stuff.
The Hasselblads and the View cameras.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Again, there is a link to the, there it is from Bob Doms, the feedback form in the chat. There's also a link to the shared photo walk album in the link to the chat. And there's also the gift guide show notes in there. I also posted the show notes to TMUG Talk, and the link to the photo walk shared album is up there as well.
And I just downloaded the chat.
And you did. Thank you very much, because I was trying to remember to do it. I figured if we both tried, somebody would do it.
Wonder Twin powers activate.
Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions before we call it a day, other than what do those letters mean behind you, Melissa?
Oh, those are all of our family's initials.
Oh, okay. Okay.
KLMNO.
Susan has her hand up.
Yes, I was interested in Chris's presentation, but it seems to me that it's for photographers. I wonder what Chris thinks about that, the 14 Pro for somebody who's totally amateur for photography.
Well, I'll tell you, Susan, it's a great question. And, you can kind of approach it at any level you want to. And I'm sure plenty of people will. You could have a lot of fun with it. The Pro Max is a very large camera. I don't have any familiarity with the 14 Plus models, which have 2 lenses. I'm assuming they don't have the ultra wide, and I don't think they have the 48 millimeter either.
Right.
And that might be fine. I mean, depending upon one's budget and what you want to spend and how big an iPhone you want to carry around. I tell you, I certainly had a pretty good time. I mean, I waited a year. I've got a lot of arthritis in my shoulders, and I was really trying to make the XR work as my only camera for about a year and then I finally, got the Nikon mirrorless camera. But you can have a lot of fun with it, and anybody can at any level. And there's no shortage of YouTube information on the internet about the cameras and getting started. So if you have whatever iPhone you have or you're thinking about getting, you certainly could. I mean, I got the 14 Pro Max because I was having, it's a little bit bigger, it's easier for me to read, and it's not that much heavier to carry. And I wanted to have the 3 lenses. I mean, I really got it for the cameras to see what I could do with it and have fun with it. But absolutely, you could use it at any level you like.
So basically, if you're not knowledgeable, you've got to do a lot of studying to even know what lens to use.
The best way to do that, Susan, would be to join us on a photo walk where we can help you press the buttons.
Yeah,
Or
and it's
just play
very
with it.
intuitive. Yeah, just play with it and try it out.
Yeah, play with it and make mistakes and have successes.
Take a lot of pictures.
A lot of pictures.
The other thing to remember is that there's going to be an iPhone 15 next fall. If you buy an iPhone 14 regular this year and you use it and you decide, gee, I really wish I would have gotten the 14 Pro. Well, next year get the 15 Pro, because it's going to have a better camera. I mean, these days you're buying an Apple camera that can also make phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the trade-in values kind of protect you from losing a whole smear of money that's the price of acquiring your learning, a year's worth of learning.
They hold their value.
It's very true, Jerry. But, Susan, you can just play with it yourself, and try it out in the backyard or walking around your house and just see what works, and that's how most people get started. And then they get interested, and then they start reading the manual, later
Do you
on.
like to watch YouTube videos for instruction? Do you find those helpful?
I don't do that much. I've got 2 lenses on my phone now. I don't think I've ever figured out what the 2 are.
Would you be willing to watch a tutorial and then something that shows you exactly what their purpose is?
Sure, I could.
Okay.
Or a photo walk.
I will look in my history. I have a playlist on my YouTube of somebody who does really fantastic overviews. Like he gets to the point, he doesn't beat around, and this is what this does. Here's some rubber duckies, and does sample shots for you. So if I
I
can
know
find
the
that, if
one
you're
who does
interested,
the
I'll
rubber
share that.
duckies. Those are good.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Those little rubber duckies. It's great.
Uh-huh.
I forget the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jerry from Monterey also has his hand up. You're up, Jerry.
Chris answered my main question, but the thing I was going to add, here in Monterey, we have some really good adult education schools, and you can get classes, for $70 probably, that you go to 6 weeks maybe, and once a week, and learn a lot of things about how to use a camera, basic things that would help you if you want to know more about using an iPhone camera. The nice thing is that Apple builds these things, so basically all you have to do is point and shoot.
Mhm. That's
Or
true.
remember that you have a camera in your phone. Every time I need a camera, I keep on forgetting that I have one
Yeah.
in my pocket.
Well, with the advancements in computational photography, you're right. You can almost every picture you take looks terrific. Apple's taken care of that for you. So it's a matter of what you're seeing, not the mechanics of taking the photo.
Except where you leave your finger over the lens.
I've not done that.
But
This
even
is a
even the
problem.
image stabilization has been amazing. I know one of the things my dad gets like anticipation shakes, and he used to be really intimidated by that. But then once he has an iPhone 7, but he can take pictures and video, and you don't see the shakes. It's got really, really great image stabilization. So, it's not as intimidating anymore.
Sherm has his hand up. Sherm, you're up.
Yeah, I had an incident where I called Apple and they gave me incorrect advice and my phone froze up on me. In order to clear it, we had to reset the phone and upgrade to 16.03. And frankly, it's been quite stable. There's only one app on my phone that has to be upgraded.
That's good. It's good to know.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
Okay. With that, I think we're going to do the raffle and close out the evening. So we're going to ask, let's see, we have, and there's my list, and my list is 29 people long. So let's have somebody. How about Chris? Chris, can you ask the S lady to pick a number between 1 and 29?
How about 22?
No. Ask the S lady to do it.
Oh, just on my phone. Hey, Siri, pick a number between 1 and 29. A random number, 1, 29, end parenthesis, equals 13.
13.
Okay. 13 is Susan Oates, who has just turned on her camera. Hi, Susan. Welcome. And you are this week's winner.
Well, thank you.
Yay!
You have to turn on your
And
camera
what does
more
he
often.
win, Bob?
Well, thanks for asking, Roger. She's going to win an Apple gift card for the ridiculous amount of $10. And I will double check your email address and check that with you probably tomorrow. And then it will be sent off via email, and you can cash it in through your iTunes app and use it for anything Apple.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay. If that is all, then let's close this out.
It was a wonderful presentation. This is one of the best meetings I've had recently.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
I guess I got
pleasure.
to
Thank you, Chris.
twist more arms more often.
Telling you, you're an influencer.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good evening, everybody.
And if
Thanks,
Melissa's got the chat, so I don't have
I
to
got the
worry
chat.
about it. Send
I'll
it
text
off
it to you.
Susan, and have a good Halloween and a good Oktoberfest, and we will see you before Turkey Day.
Okay, great.
Trick or
Bye,
Good
treat.
night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night,
Bye
all.
now.
Night.